Hello and good morning, Heather. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And how are you doing, Arrow?
Fantastic. I'm so proud of you for finally stepping forward with a book about something we know nothing about. Because when my wife first saw this book, she's going, really? I mean, you see, women are interested in stories like this.
Absolutely. I mean, we all want to see women and what their lives were like in the past. And the Viking Age, we've all seen those big brawny warriors with their, broad axes over their shoulders, swords at their hips. And, what about the women? What were they doing the whole time? So that was my main idea in writing this book.
Did the Viking women, were they like the men, always seeking new land?
Sure they were. That was very much a part of their lives. I mean, they were settlers, and they were explorers. I mean, they were part of some of the expeditions to North America. We have archaeological evidence of women in a Viking site in Newfoundland, so we know they're there. They weren't just stay-at-home moms, and which was the idea that a lot of archaeologists in Scandinavia had for decades and decades. The conventional view was that Viking women spent their time at home, raising kids and cooking and washing clothes and most of all weaving. And that was the central idea that a lot of archaeologists had. And it's only fairly recently that archaeologists, and I think female archaeologists, have been saying to themselves, okay, well, what were the women doing? And what kind of questions should we be asking, and what kinds of evidence should we be looking for?
We're also talking about leadership roles here too, aren't we, when it comes to the Viking women?
Oh, yes, we absolutely are. I mean, there were a variety of leadership roles. They were some of them were queens, power brokers, alliance builders. Some of them were landowners. Some owned, large estates, explorers, as I just mentioned, warriors, military commanders, sorceresses, and magic workers. I mean, that's quite a range of possibilities there. And while most Viking women probably were stay-at-home mothers and taking care of their children and families, some women clearly rebelled against those traditional roles and took on other ways of life. And those are the women that I was most interested in.
This book cover is so powerful in the way that it says so much, because it serves as an invitation, because her eyes look like, it's like, if you only knew, but now through Heather, you now know. I mean, because it just takes you right to the first paragraphs, and you're going, oh my God, I'm going to be entertained as well as I'm going to learn. I'm going to feel like a Viking because I'm exploring now.
Well, that's it. And I also like go to the cover for a moment, that kind of Mona Lisa smile that she has as well. It's very mysterious. You're right. She's there, but what is she thinking about? And she is, I think, an invitation to all of us, to readers, to take a look and see what those women were actually up to. So yes, and I thought to myself while I was writing the book, I thought to myself, well, gee, I love archaeology. I've been writing about archaeology for almost, over 40 years now. But not everyone is as in love with archaeology as I am. So I thought, what can I do to really bring these women to life? And so what I eventually decided to do was I decided to write fictional passages that were based on archaeological finds, but nevertheless fictional passages with living, breathing kind of Viking women in them. And that was my attempt to engage with readers and say, hey, this isn't just a pile of bones and old artifacts and so on. These were real women, and that was how I attempted to bring them to life.
You talk about archaeology and the stories, and my mind goes, this is over 900 years ago. These stories have been waiting 900 years to make it here.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the problems is that the Vikings were masters the spoken word, as I like to think of it, not so much the written word. They had a writing system which was based on the runes, but that writing system was really more suited to what I think of as tweets, very short messages, not kind of long historical books about themselves. So we have a lot of these Viking tweets, but we don't have much in terms of the detailed history written by the Vikings themselves. So the stories that we have, which are often called the sagas, they were passed down for generations, it seems, in the Viking world. And then after the Viking Age ended, scholars, mostly Christian male scholars, wrote down some of the sagas. So they are the sagas told through the eyes of a later people, a Christian people, and probably most importantly of all, males who were writing for male audiences. So I think we have to keep that in mind when we talk about the sagas. That's why archaeology is so incredibly important. Yeah. We need it to fill in the gaps.
Oh my God! And you listeners need to understand where your heart is that in your heart you found the strength that you've got to tell this story straight. But my question is, does this mean we're going to change our story growing forward? Because assumption is no longer part of the picture. You're setting us straight.
Yeah, I really hope so. I do love a lot of the films that have been made about Vikings. The Vikings, the Thor series and so on. But all those, most of those films, I think all of them, really focus on a principal character that is a man. So it's a male warrior, it's a male military commander, or it could be a male god like Thor. But really, there is in the pantheon, in the Viking pantheon, there are some very interesting female goddesses. For example, Freya. Freya is a goddess of prosperity, fertility. She's also a goddess of the battlefield, and she is a goddess of sorcery and magic. So, why not have a film a film that looks at Freya, and then maybe have female warriors and military commanders driving the action instead of being along as kind of, we see female warriors in some of the films and television series, but they're kind of like the buddies that go along with the principal male characters. So why not focus on the women? I think that would be so cool. Yeah,
but one thing about it is that, Heather, we got to make sure that she can't fly. She's not going to have these superhuman powers in the way of being a Wonder Woman or anything like that. It's got to be an authentic story about leadership and strength.
No, I couldn't agree more with you. And I couldn't agree more with you. We have to keep our feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are so many great stories to be told. How many people know that some Viking women made a form of armor for male warriors going off to join armies? Only the very rich male commanders, lords and kings had chainmail. Chainmail was really expensive. But Viking women made a form of cloth armor, which I think is so cool. And it might sound like a bit of a joke, like, what's that going to do, right? But these are heavy, kind of padded, not so heavy, but padded jackets. And modern replication experiments have shown archaeologists and historians have taken patches of cloth that fit the descriptions of the cloth armor and the pictorial evidence, and put them use them as targets, and then asked archers to fire arrows at them to see what happened. And what's really interesting is that an arrow, they observed that arrows fired at a low velocity or from a considerable distance bounced off the cloth armor. So, it was effective. Not as effective as metal armor, but then it was lightweight, it was rust-proof, and it was a heck of a lot more comfortable than walking around with heavy chainmail on.
Wow. One of the areas that we've got to touch on, because I know a lot of people aren't going to understand this, how did Christianity change the playing field? I was like going, I didn't know.
Well, Christianity certainly did change the playing field in Scandinavia. And, certainly the Scandinavians converted quite significantly by the end of the 11th century. There were a lot of converts at that point. And, they were converts, but at the same time, the women, I think, continued to practice some of the more modest forms of magic. I mean, they probably attended the church on Sundays and listened to the sermons and that kind of thing, but at home in their daily life, they were trying to please, trying to win the favor of elves and local divinities in small, minor ways. Honoring the old traditions of magical, mythical beings. So, yes, Scandinavia converted to Christianity, but there's still evidence that women were drawn and continued to perform small acts of magic.
Wow. Where can people go to find out more about you, Heather? Because I want them to really dive into your hard work and dedication.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So they can check out my website. It's just heatherpringle.com. There's pages on that deal with my past writing, articles, and so on, and current writing, and certainly a page on the Northwomen.
Wow. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, well, thanks so much.